So, hi everyone. We are in conversation with Shruti Bopaya. She's the head client engagement and communications at Bridge Beef. So, what can I say about Shruti? Shruti, I think, has 15 years plus industry experience in the IT and services sector. She is as I've known through her profile, she's the one person, the go-to person for HR consulting, recruiting, HR policies, market research, and basically building the employer experience. She's also a top 50 SHRM influencer and 40 under 40 HR leader. Welcome, Shruti. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Ananya. Thank you so much. Quite excited to be on your show.
Thank you. Thank you, Shruti. So, Shruti, there's been a lot of discussion on diversity and inclusivity over the past few years. However, many are still confused about what they are and how they work. So, for us, for the benefit of others, could you please elucidate what it really means and what all does it include?
Okay, absolutely. See, I look at it in a very simple way. Okay, the simple way is that all that one needs to understand is to treat the other person without any biases attached. I think that's the crux of this entire thing. Now, while it is very easy to say that, it's very difficult to practice, even as us as individuals, right? I mean, we all come with our unconscious biases. So it definitely gets challenging. So it's simple to understand, but extremely difficult to practice. Now think about that from an organization's point of view. When you have a number of different types of individuals, people's backgrounds, how they've sort of seen life, lived life. So when you think about all of that, that's, I think, and being inclusive around all those types of people, who they are, how they are, and you included, and how you can work around that. I think that's really about the whole inclusion piece and what happens. So, but there are many aspects of diversity, and I think that's important for people to understand. We've always known about gender and race, racial diversity, but today there's generational, there's geographical, there's cognitive diversity. So there's a whole bunch of it. But to answer your question on one more aspect, I think today it's not only about diversity and inclusion, but equity as well. I think that is what we all need to sort of also understand. Where we work, it could even, it's even at home, and we're all in the social space as well. So I think it's that part about equity as well. So that's how I would look at it, Ananya.
Right. So, Shruti, this has been there, right? People from varied races, cultures come together, work together. That has always been there. So why suddenly the talk about it, or the need as an organizational objective, for it? Uh, because this conversation has really grown over the past couple of years. So, what led to this shift? What led to this?
That's a very interesting question, but I think we all have to say, have we observed around us that this shift is happening? It's not just in an organization, right? This shift is happening in our social, in the social arena as well, right? There is more focus on women, on race, on, again, I'm going to go back to the equity bit of it. So, but on the organization side, of course, I can talk about it. There is a lot of talk, and I think that's what we have to understand. Is it all just talk, or is some real difference being made? but to answer your first question, see, there is a rise in, just if you look at it, talent, right? I mean, in the search of talent, or the talent war, and all these different things that people are talking about, kind of, the technology impact that's coming about, where everybody has access to so much more information, education being available, and opportunities being available, at least as much as we can, let's think about it in a more equal way. And yet there is a pay gap, right? And yet there is such less women on the board. And if they are on the board, are they really making decisions? So there are a number of things. And then look at the social aspect of so many people from smaller towns, and I'm going to stick to India, but if you look at it globally as well, people coming into the cities. So mindsets are changing. There's a shift happening, and that is what we're seeing over a period of time. When you say, why all this talk in organizations, the talk has been there. I think today the talk has happened, and diversity and inclusion days have happened. I think today what we really need to talk about is, has that shift happened? Has that needle moved? Or is it just companies being pressurized to deliver on diversity goals? Or are companies genuinely trying to make that change? Are they? So I mean, we'll talk more about it, and I'm sure you'll have more questions around it. But I think that's what we need to ask ourselves, Ananya.
Right. So, if I could ask you, how do multi-generational workforce and technology form a part of it? We.
Yeah, of course. There are so a part of it is the answer that I was giving you. This whole demographic shift that's happening. Where people are moving to get jobs, and also, if you really look at when you say multi-generational, I think it's also about, in one workplace today you have different from Gen X to Gen Y to today's millennials, and of course the Gen Z are really young, but it's not far away when they will also be a part of the workforce. But what does it mean from a diversity and inclusion perspective, right? I was reading this article, which was talking about, there are hardly any directors on the board who are less than 50 years of age. Okay, so on the one hand, we see that how an experienced person sometimes prevents the young organization from reinventing the wheel, but at the same time, organizations are also faced with this decision making, right, of creating product solutions almost on an everyday basis. So here is what we need to think about. They're already there in the organization, but I think what organizations need to think about is, how will you make multi-generational workforces combine with each other and work seamlessly? And I've been very fascinated about this whole thing around cognitive diversity, and I think that's really where we should all be heading to. But we're of course still solving some of the basics around diversity and inclusion, and we're still stuck at gender and race. And today you have you have the whole LGBTQ workforce coming in. So how are your systems geared up? How are your processes geared up? How is your performance management geared up to handle this? How is your hiring geared up? Do they all have access to equal opportunities? And let me tell you, in the multi-generational workforce, I love your question, because tomorrow we're going to have robots working with us. How are you going to also understand that you have to interact with them, you have to feel, treat them equally, you have to be inclusive around them, you have to accept even their flaws, help them get better, make peace with the fact that they can do certain things much better than us. So it is also about all these things in a multi-generational workforce. So I think creating a psychologically safe space for all these different types of generational multi-generational workforce is going to be the key to thinking about diversity in the long term for organizations. But it's already here and they need to be prepared. Yeah.
Shruti, this brings me to a very interesting, it's a question or something that I would like your thoughts on. The other day, I was reading an article by Rishad Premji,
Mm.
Indian Express Survey, where he was talking about human development growth, and and one of the measures was that increased participation of women, because reports say that even though there is so much of hullabaloo around this topic around inclusivity, diversity, getting women in the workforce, still in the course of the last few years, we've seen the participation of women has considerably gone down from the workforce. There are very, very less women in the decision making posts right now, but as you said, like there's a lot of talk, but what is really happening at the ground level is something that is uh, what I'm thinking about. Where,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on this? Even for our LGBT community, people are not ready to accept the fact. Still, we may say we are quite, modern, we think out of the box, we accept everything, but still, at a certain level, we don't do it.
Yeah. 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 No, you're absolutely right. Rishad is right, obviously, also because it's here for all of us to see, right? The sad thing is what you said. The report says that it's getting lesser when it should have been getting better, right? We've started so many years before. That's exactly how you started this conversation. We have started so many years before. And if you really see, there is so much more awareness about this whole thing, right? Do you agree that there's awareness that diversity is important, you need to focus on it, all that has also happened, but
Yes.
it has just become about that day, right? About March 8th, about the LGBTQ day, about so this is where I think organizations, and I would say this is now not about HR, this is not about the diversity officer who needs to be worried that how, what should I be doing, how do I increase this. This is a CEO's mandate. The CEO should be rallying around this. So let me give you an example. Okay, so if in an organization, okay, if there is an issue with the sales numbers, okay,
Hmm.
how does a CEO approach it? The CEO won't be saying, let me create a celebrate sales month, right? And then because we're celebrating it, sales will improve. Of course not. That's not the way it happens. They get down to where is the issue, what are the ways to fix it. They think about it as a business problem, right? They
True.
think about it as tools, and what can I do to enable salespeople and change mindsets and talk to customers, and what are the metrics saying, what is the evidence around the metrics. So they completely approach it like a business problem, and I think that is exactly how this has to be looked at. Only then, and coming straight down from the CEO, because that's when the other business leaders, who obviously are largely male, will look at doing this entire thing, making the needle move in a very different way. So the approach to this cannot be about the way we have done it, which is about celebrating it and making a day out of it and then forgetting it. It has
Right.
to be about, are we hiring equal number of people, are we giving equal number of opportunities, what does a performance management system expect out of managers, out of all types of people. So it that's how it needs to be looked at. So your question on what's happening at the grassroots level is the same. In fact, grassroots level, if you look at any IT company, 50% of the workforce are, it's equal when they come in, right, from the colleges. Then after that, you see this really sharp drop as people, get to the top. Now, there are obviously a number of reasons for that. But what are companies doing to enable that? If people have to take off for different reasons, and in this particular case, if it needs to be women, how do the policies and processes work to ensure that they can come back faster? And once they come back, how easy it is to, kind of seamlessly bring them back into mainstream. There are a lot of things that need to be done, but the first and foremost thing is it has to become a business item and a business agenda. Just like if your sales high, your sales numbers were low. I mean, that's almost like the most extreme example I'm taking, but it needs to be looked at like that if we want to see a shift.
No, I think you're absolutely, right, and it's to the T. Because until and unless we do that, things are not going to move.
Yeah.
So again, I'll be coming back to the question that one, why is it important at the workplace, and how can organizations move from some to a from all concept steadily?
So, Ananya, I think some of my answer in the last about how can organizations move to it, I think the answer lies in, I genuinely believe it is about the topmost leader, because you're watching the topmost leader, it becomes a business item, and then agenda, and then that's how it needs to be looked at, and it will work. I think we need to understand a little bit about, I was doing some reading, and that's why it was interesting. In organizations, especially, bias on the ground happens in different ways. Okay, so for different people, they almost it happens in there are 5 types of ways that it actually happens. So I think this is what organizations probably need to look at to ensure that it does not happen. And this is not even about it borders on unconscious bias, but I think it's happening as we speak. And I think so, other than this, one way of doing it, to your answer, is of course the CEO making it a business agenda. The other way is to even understand what are all these biases. So for example, typically for some people in an organization, okay, now this could be anywhere globally I'm talking about, because whether it's race, gender, LGBTQ, age, disability, sometimes even social class, this actually happens to different types of people. So one is prove it again. Sadly, there are many people in an organization, they just have to prove it again. So you could do something right, but you'll have to do it again and again and again, unlike what we are used to, a standard person who would do it, and you'll be like, wow, that's amazing, this person met the sales target. Now think about it, if there was somebody in the example that I gave you, because of our biases, was to on race or gender or age do it, you'd just be like, oh, maybe this was one time, let's see if they can do it again. So this prove it again bias is sort of inherent in organizations. Okay. The second is the tightrope. What that means is that if it's interesting that if men again largely show that they are authoritative, you're like, wow, what a leader, right? Walking the tightrope. But the same thing if women were to do it, the first thing people would be like, oh, this person is so bossy, right? So you almost you start. So that's the thing. So you look at it differently, and again it's the bias, right? You so these are things that organizations need to train people on. And of course the third one is interesting because it is the biases. And I was reading all this, by the way. So it's called the tug of war, which is, now there is a tug of war between, like if I'm one woman, and up for that one position, and they are saying that there is a seat on the table only for a woman to come in, to this particular, say, panel or board. I'm now going to be having this tug of war with other women, right? Because, yeah, and the same thing with race or people of color or, whatever. They'd be doing it with the similar kind. The fourth one is what we all see. It is called the maternal wall. And this is to do with, women who actually come back, and mothers who feel that they need to prove that they need to do more. So it's also about themselves, but also the organization, kind of should be thinking about making it much more easier, because they are constantly otherwise in this thing about they have to prove, they have to do this better, their seamless transition. And I think that is something that's the fourth thing, which all of us see globally. Okay, now the fifth one is just racial stereotypes. Now, we could be in India, but to some extent, where we're saying we're north, we're south, we're east, we're west, whatever. There is one, so I'm saying sometimes it just comes. It's not, we don't even mean it. So, and we sometimes bring that kind of stereotyping as well into work. So there is so much we all need to work on. It's not only as organizations but as individuals as well. That's how I would look at it, Ananya. It's a combination. If we are all looking at this globalized world, right, then we've all got to drop our armor some more.
Right, and there are instances, while you were talking about this, I could reflect on that it has happened. Either I've seen it or I've faced it.
Exactly.
And these biases have been there, maybe not intentionally. Of course they were not intentional,
Yeah.
but it's been there. Oh, you're a mother who's coming back after a 7-year sabbatical. My God, how are you going to do it? It's going to get tough. How will you manage?
And the other way around, if you do it and you're succeeding at it, then they're thinking that maybe you're neglecting being a great mother. Right? So there's
this is so relatable that and it's not me, it's so many women across the board who go through it day in day out. And as I said, it's not intentional, it is how we've been brought up. That also
yeah. Absolutely. It's a social, by the way, this entire, see, what do we take to work? It is who we are. And who are we? We are all that we are when we are not at work, right? How we grew up, how we are at home. So organizations also, they'll train you and everything, but end of the day, you're going back home. There is a whole social aspect to how you live today. So it's tough. It's not easy. So it's each one of us have to almost open up and allow for us to look at things very differently.